there's only one radio
This is Steve McGregor. I sing. School, school, school.
What you know about a 5-year-old Stephen the Genius? What you know about that?
School, school and roll. Think about a great big school. Big up all schoolers and all teachers. And all teachers. And all teachers.
We have to big up our teachers, right? And not necessarily teachers in the classroom, but teachers in and out the classroom, teachers around the globe, teachers in Jamaica.
And all teachers.
What were you doing at 5? As a 5-year-old, what were you doing, right? While you're running around the house, breaking stuff. Do you know what Stephen the Genius was doing?
And all teachers.
Do you know what he was doing?
And all teachers. This is
Right to my right song, you know.
I sing. School, school, school and roll. Nobody think about the work man told. School, school, school and roll. Think about a great big school. School, school, school and roll. Nobody think about the work man told. School, school, school and roll. Think about a great big school. Every morning me pack up me book, me go to school. Go on me bus, nothing but work man too. When me go to school, me hear them sing old man. Then I got the cone jump over the moon. I sing school, school, school and roll. Nobody think about the work man too. School, school, school and roll. Think about a great big school. School, school, school and roll. Nobody think about the work man too.
And it's that time inside the Easy Skanking. It's 12:32, so you already know it's time for Road to Success, the journey. Stephen McGregor, more popularly known as Stephen the Genius, is a Grammy Award-winning music producer, entertainer, and songwriter. He's from a musical family. His father is legendary veteran reggae artist Freddie McGregor, and his siblings are entertainers Daniel Chino McGregor and Yashima Beth McGregor. The Genius has produced and written songs for international artists such as Sean Paul, Drake, Damian Marley, Nelly Furtado, Shakira, and most recent, John Legend, and so much more.
Dog in a trouble, you might get expelled. Respect your teachers and friends. Well, when me there at school, yes, me
Stephen the Genius, can you hear me?
but them can't get me out. Again, school, school, school and roll.
Remember, you can watch live online. You can check out our YouTube channel. You can also log on to IRFM's social media platforms. I'm hearing you loud and clear. You can't hear? I'm hearing you, Stephen. Are you hearing me?
You're muted. I can't hear you.
Me was nothing but work man too. When me go to school, me them sing old man. That's how they call jump over the moon. I sing school, school, school and roll. Nobody think about the work man too. School, school, school and roll. Think about a great big school. Big up all schoolers and all teachers. This is Steve McGregor.
So we're standing by inside the Road to Success, the journey. You know how technology stay, don't it?
Great big school, 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 school and roll. Nobody think about the work man too. School, school, school and roll. Think about a great big school. Every morning me pack up me book, me go to school.
Stephen, can you hear me?
When me go to school, me hear them sing old man. Then I got the cone jump over the moon. I sing school, school, school and roll. Nobody think about the work man too. School, school, school and roll. Think about a great big school. School, school, school and roll. Nobody think about the work man too. School, school, school and roll. Think about a great big school. In the evening, me say me prayers go out. Me school bus door. School, school and roll. Nobody think about the work man too. School, school, school and roll. Think about a great big school. School, school, school and roll. Nobody think about the work man too. School, school, school and roll. Think about a great big school. Try to learn a lesson and learn it well. Learn how to read and learn how to spell. trouble, you might get expelled. Just like a teacher and friends. Well,
So, Stephen, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right. So finally, we're definitely doing this.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, first of all, for agreeing to come on and taking us on your journey on the road to success. So thank you.
Thank you. Where you find that song that's a while ago?
No, we're playing this 5-year-old Steven, the genius. No, Steven, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Okay, awesome. So, let us start off. You're from a musical family, basically. A celebrity dad. Your sister, your brother, everybody's also a part of music. What was it like for Stephen McGregor growing up?
It's funny. It always weird when people ask me that because it's like that's the only way I knew. So, but for me it was pretty normal. But I guess as I got older, I started to realize like the impact of like being in that particular situation with my father, being who he is, and like just how our life set up basically. And then I realized that it's all the resources were there.
Right, but 5 years later, there you are at the age of 10, and you're playing roughly 5 different instruments. You're playing the guitar, you're playing the drums, the violin. What or who actually inspired your musical interests?
I just again I think it just come back to having parents who allowed me to just explore. You know, like my dad built the studio when I was 5, and even then it wasn't a pressure like, oh, you should learn an instrument or you should do something. It just like left it open for us to like, if you're interested, you can do this, but it's there. So I think just having them being open enough to allow me to explore and, oh, I want to do violin lessons, and then I end up do that, or I could just play around with some of the stuff in the studio, and that became development for me without even realizing it.
And like you would have alluded to before, your
I think
environment
you
as a
muted
child.
again.
You're hearing me now?
Yeah, hearing you now. Yeah.
As you would have alluded before, like your environment as a child would have been different from the ordinary child. Like you're seeing your dad as a superstar. I'm sure there were other celebrities around as well. What was it like for you going to Vaz Prep and then Arden High? Were you treated differently among your peers? Like superstar father and whole celebrity family. What was that vibe like?
No, I mean, well, at school, no, because the music part of it is something I never used to talk about at all. So it's like, even when I was in high school, and by then I had like big rhythms on the radio and whatever, but even just if only persons in my immediate friend circle would have known that that's what I was doing when I went home. But nobody else never know that. It's like after I graduate now, people start, like teachers and things would have come to me like, yo, you never told me that was you, blah, blah, blah. Because I'm hearing the genius done at school, I'm the Stephen McGregor. So, so, it's two different things. But yeah, but like you said, having the environment to I think that was the biggest part of the inspiration for me. Like coming home from school and walking into the studio, seeing my father with, I don't know, Sly and Robbie or Steely and Cleaver, just like the legends, and seeing them work. I think that
Mm-hmm.
was the biggest privilege to me, to be able to just have a first-hand look into that environment. And
Can you
that
remember,
inspired me.
like, even watching your dad with a Sly and Robbie? Like, what were some of the things that you were soaking up? Like, you looking and saying, "Boy, did it occur to you at that point that you would want to be like this, or you want to be a producer?" When did that dream in your heart come about?
Yeah, I just remember always feeling inspired, seeing the creative process of it. Like I just remember seeing somebody start making the rhythm, to seeing Uncle Dalton, rest in peace, come in and play guitars and sing harmony, and then like seeing my father record the song, and then going on tour with him and seeing him perform it for like 20,000 people in Japan. So to me that was just mind blowing. Like, yo, I watched this from scratch and then see it turn out into, so that to me was like the most fascinating thing. So I think that was the biggest inspiration, definitely. And then as I started to explore my own creativity, I mean, I had an experience at that already, so I knew how far it could go, basically.
When did you know that you have this love for dancehall? Because you started out, a hardcore dancehall producer. When did that started?
Well, actually, I tell you, my first set of rhythm them that I did start make wasn't actually dancehall. I was just experimenting. I used to like sample heavy, like sample like Curtis Mayfield and like more hip hop kind of sound and stuff too. But then my dancehall sound came from me being influenced by all of what I grew up on, and then all of what was happening, like at the time with the Neptunes and Timbaland, and so my style was kind of like a merge of all of that. That's why some of the stuff they kind of sound hybrid, like because I was such a fan of music for like what was happening in dancehall, but also what I was listening to at the time and what was happening around me.
What
So
did your parents think about how you were creating and the direction that you wanted to go in? Because sometimes parents, they can be nurturing in a way to the point where if they're not careful, it can stifle your creativity, or
yeah, yeah.
not allowing you to just be. What was your situation like? Were you groomed in a way to say, "Oh, you want to do producing? Why don't you try singing as well?" Or
Mhm.
why don't you try producing more reggae beats? What was the household like?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned before, it's just a thing again about having parents that just really allowed me to just be and
Be.
just create and just, them never really tried to get involved. Even my father being a legend and being a creative too, he never really get involved in what I was doing creatively. I'm just like obviously like just general guidance, and and just the principle of how they are. So I know that I would have stayed within certain lines with respect to the family name, but but still allow me to just figure out my journey and do my thing. So that
At
I think
what
that's one of the biggest blessings I got to as an individual.
at what point did they start calling you the genius? How did that monkey come about?
So so one of the first persons who called me that was actually Future Fambo.
Oh.
Yeah, because I remember I was recording him. I did have a juggling at the time. I think it was them Dutch Master, and I was recording him and singing melody at the time. And I think I remember it being like really late, and I did kind of remind them like, "Yo, man, I'm school, I'm on." And then that's how it came up. And it was like, "Yo, yeah, how much?" I think I was like 11, 12 at the time, and they were like, "Yo, yeah, 12, and I do all of them things in the studio." Like, "Yo, the genius," that kind of vibe. And then friends and everybody around it, the name started to stick after that.
But being so young though, what was that vibe like? Like when you're recording, you're recording people like Movado,
Yeah.
Cartel, really big names.
Mhm.
Did they listen to you if in that moment you wanted them to be a particular way on the beat or sound this type of way? What was that interaction like?
This is something I say all the time to like other producers, and I think that's one of the key components to me having success with them, because the relationship developed in a way where I am a big fan of the music and fan of the artists too, separate from me producing them. So I think there's a trust situation that them just know that I rate them so much and respect their talent so much that if I make a suggestion or something, it's out of a place of just wanting the song to be better. So it's a less critical thing of like, oh, this producer judged me kind of thing. Like, so, like, and the same way, like, even when I work with somebody like Movado, we kind of have like an unspoken thing. Like, like, him will sing something in the booth, him kind of look at me, and him we can see it on my face if I'm into what I do or not. So without us having to communicate. And that is because of that trust that developed, because them know say I'm a fan too. And then vice versa. So if I play my rhythm, and same thing, I know how him respond, and know say, oh, I'm like this one, let's work on it. Or it's kind of that thing. So I think the trust have to build up like that with the respect things to make the working relationship be good.
Cool. And, speaking of Movado, because you also, according to my research, you helped to write his hit, What Am I Do? How did you meet Vado? And was this your introduction to dancehall at the age of 15?
Well, I never wrote on that like lyrically, but
Co-wrote.
I write on it because I wrote the music. But I knew him from before, because like Cassava Piece really close by where we are, and then we knew each other from before that, because he had recorded for me on previous rhythms too before we were both like at that level. And remember, I did Red Bull and Guinness with Deli Ranks, and then so I think that's how that connection came back on that juggling, and then I recorded it and mixed it and thing, and yeah, that song really blew up. So that was the one of my first like bigger moment from dancehall too, because that song went on to the Billboard chart and that kind of thing. But the relationship was developing prior to that, like I said.
But Stephen, like all the years I've known you, I mean, from you just started growing your locks to now your locks are extremely long. You've always maintained this relaxed, humble type of persona. How did you not allow like all this success to get to your head at such an early age?
Yeah. Well, for that, I think it's two things. For one, kind of like what we touched on before, I kind of grew up in that situation. So, in a way, I was kind of used to seeing a lot of that firsthand before. And then, my reason for starting music too is another big part of it. Because, like I said before, I really only started music just from, honestly, just falling in love with the process and being fascinated by it. I never have any other goal, like, oh, I just want to be famous or anything else, or it wasn't money motivated or anything. So for me, like, any little level I got to was just enough for me to be like grateful and be like, whoa, like actually I have a rhythm I play on the radio, and then like just growing the way we were raised to, like my father always say a thing like it never happened until it happened. So I don't get ahead of myself with anything. Like if something really big happens, just like, all right, cool, grateful, and we'll just move on, and not like everybody should stop and kind of praise me kind of vibe.
But even what you're saying now, Stephen, like there's also a thin line in that moment, because here it is, you're reaping success and you're going places. But what kept you hungry though, for you to still push further and not settle for where you are and what you have achieved thus far?
I think that's just like, again, just staying motivated and just kind of knowing that there's really no limit to where it can go. I go from just kind of visualizing having music being played amongst other producers and other artists that I like the music, to knowing that that's possible to a next level, to like can be mentioned in like Grammy situation, or like, so it's just me knowing mentally that there's always more to go and there's more that can be achieved. And just like from watching your peers too, like I'm one of those persons where I get motivated and inspired when I see my other peers do great things too. So, it helped to just keep you excited. And I really just do music because I love it. If the focus changed to something else, I feel like I would be less inspired to do it. But I just honestly love the process of music. Like I'll stay in here for hours and just create.
Cool. Now, you mentioned Red Bull and Guineas. You have After Dark, Daybreak, Day Rave, Outbreak, Bad People Championship, Street Swag, Winning. I mean, I could go on and on. You have created so many different rhythms. Which rhythms or rhythm are you most proud of, and why?
That's a difficult one.
I know it's tough, but you must have that one that really You know, love that rhythm, yeah.
I don't know. It's hard because I feel because I put the same kind of effort into all of them, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't think there's any I love more than any, to be honest. I know like
Mm-hmm.
some of them make different impact. Like I've said before, like a Red Bull and Guinness, when I did that with Delhi at the time, that kind of took me to a next place, and then set me up for the other stage of my career and like that kind of thing. But in terms of me personally loving one more than any, I don't think I can honestly say that.
Have you ever had like a moment where, because in everything we do and on the road to success and people seeing you striving and you rising and you sticking with it and you working hard, how do you deal with detractors, persons who attempt to say, boy, him so young, him not even know him a door or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Do you hear those persons and how did you deal with it at that period coming up?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely hear that, and like, the road to success is not gonna be bumpy like that too. But I think the most important part of it is like being self-aware, and I'm generally like that too. I'm not really like I'm more like to myself type of person, so I'm usually like more self-directed, where I can like get criticism or whatever, and then I can kind of analyze it for myself and then take it from there, and not get pressured by too much external things like that. So I would say all of the things same way, and just use it as motivation same way. There's obviously like enough back and forth and enough politics and the music business go. But I think, like I said, it come back to my why. The reason why you start doing what you're doing is the most important, because that will determine how you navigate through the highs and the lows. Because nobody not gonna have highs all the time. So when you're having a
And
low time or a
go
down
ahead,
time,
sorry.
when you're having that time, like that, your why help you to either stick with it or leave it alone.
And in this forum, it's really important to sort of share how successful individuals deal with low periods or low moments. How do
Yeah.
you deal with your lows? And do you have like a strong support system, an inner circle that you actually, go to regroup and start all over again?
hmm like I said, for the most part, I think it's just being self-aware and just like being aware of, like, navigating through those feelings and those emotions too, because music itself and creating is such like a vulnerable place, because you might work on something for crazy and then you come out and nothing don't happen with it, or people have different opinions. So it's just being able to trust yourself and trust your feeling and be like, this might not turn out the way how you were planning to, but you can move on, you can try something else. And and just being aware that nobody don't have all of this figured out, so I don't expect, as talented as I am or whatever, I don't expect 100% that every single thing that I do will resonate either. So again, it's just being self-aware and not being oblivious to that fact that something might not work at some point, but just being able to ride out those moments and just like having a system, however, whether that's mentally or like you said with people, how you can bounce back and regroup and navigate to get a new place again.
And just even speaking about self-awareness, that in itself is so important because even with you looking at you is